Welcome to Get to the Hook. I am your host, Charles Latibeaudiere from TMZ, of course, and I'm joined by TMZ's music expert, or actually we used to call him the music savant.
The idiot savant, actually.
Yeah.
Let's be clear.
Some people said idiot, but I preferred music. I felt like that was more polite and more accurate. Eric Colley, who, honestly, you have from... This has been, 15 years now that I marvel. I tell people about Eric all the time that you can tell him any song in the 60s, 70s, 80s, or 90s, and he will tell you, yeah, I think that charted at whatever. And he knows it and usually comes within one or two of where it landed.
If I don't know, I'll tell you I don't know.
Right.
People are like, you could just
Which
make
is
that up.
weird.
Yeah.
Which is weird for people in this office because people just pretend that they know everything.
Right.
But so get to the hook. I want to tell you what our podcast is going to be about. So we have great conversations here in the office just about music, about music news, artists who are making news. And then we always start having these conversations where we're like, oh, that reminds me of, and this is interesting. And we decided, let's actually share some of those conversations with you. So the idea is there'll be something that has happened in the news. We're not going to spend a lot of time talking about that.
That's what TMZ is for.
That's exactly. But this is going to be the jumping off point. So we're going to tell you some other stuff that you may not have realized about that particular topic. Let's get right to the hook, as they say, because this week we are talking about the greatest night in pop. If you haven't seen this documentary on Netflix, it is doing incredibly well. It's still in the top 10. You should check it out. It's all about the making of We Are the World and the night that they recorded it. It's about how they came up with the concept, who wrote it, and then getting all of these artists, the most amazing artists in the world in 1985, all in one room in one night to record the song We Are the World. Here is just a little bit of that documentary.
1, 2. We are the world. We are the children.
The greatest artists of a generation came together to save some lives.
Must be in a dream, huh?
Hello. But we only had one night to get this right. Let's get this party started.
But that documentary was so great. First of all, the fun fact I learned is that Al Jarreau was apparently hammered through the whole thing.
I had no idea. That's the beauty of editing. We didn't know that, but that's what's great about this documentary is seeing all those moments. Al Jarreau being drunk. Who walked out?
Waylon Jennings.
Oh, Waylon Jennings.
Did not want to sing in Swahili.
Right.
Little boys don't sing in Swahili, he said.
He does have a point, but anyway.
Not wrong about that. But We Are the World, everybody, of course, knows that song. It was after the American Music Awards in 1985 when they were all in Los Angeles. Recorded this song as famine relief, or to provide money for famine relief in Ethiopia, which had a huge drought between 83 and 85. And it's the one everybody knows, but it is just sort of the tip of the iceberg of the massive all-star charity single. It's its own weird subgenre of music.
And sometimes they knock it out of the park and you have a huge hit. Some songs that are actually, that chart and do extremely well, like We Are the World did. And then others that are really great songs but don't chart. And then others that they really should not have done at all.
Right.
We're going to hit on all of those. A little bit of everything there for you. So, because this actually... While We Are the World is the one that gets the most attention and was certainly commercially the most successful, there are so many others, and that wasn't even the first one.
It was not the first one. If you want to go way back, the first song that was sort of designed as a charity benefit song, and also the offshoot, the charity all-star concert, was back in 1971. George Harrison, fresh off the breakup of the Beatles, is friends with Ravi Shankar. Ravi Shankar goes to George because a cyclone had hit Bangladesh and killed hundreds of thousands of people. And he's like, George, you have to help me do something. So George Harrison writes this song, Bangladesh, becomes a hit, raises a lot of money, and then he organizes the concert for Bangladesh at Madison Square Garden. And this is where you start seeing the all-star thing come in, because the song itself was just George.
Right.
The concert was George, Ravi Shankar, Ringo Starr, of course, Eric Clapton, Bob Dylan, who's going to figure into a couple of these songs, Billy Preston, Leon Russell, the group Badfinger, raised a ton of money and was a huge success.
Yeah. I remember seeing the video of that concert. A big success, great show, and obviously somebody saw that and remembered it. because 13 years
Yeah,
later,
it's amazing to me that there weren't more copycats of that originally.
right?
But it wasn't the modern day big all-star single happened in 1984. So when Bob Geldof, who was lead singer of the British group the Boomtown Rats, they do the song "I Don't Like Mondays," he saw a news report about starving kids in Ethiopia, and this was in October, I think, of '84. And he's like, "I have to do something." So he called his friend Midge Ure. He was in this British group called Ultravox, and they decide they're going to make a song, and they're going to get all their famous friends on it to bring in a lot of attention, make a lot of money, but they wanted it out for Christmas of '84. This is early November at this point.
Wait, that's amazing that he came. It was October of '84
The
when
end of
decided.
October. They recorded it, I believe, on November 25th and 6th.
Wow.
Yeah. So
Okay. So
Geldof starts going out to get everybody he can, and this is like who's who of '80s British pop music. You got Duran Duran, George Michael, Sting, Phil Collins, Boy George was on it. All these huge stars come together to record the song. Do They Know It's Christmas?
and by the way, this is a song that even though it was back in '84, people today probably know the song because it gets played every year. It's a Christmas song.
It comes back every year. Here's a little bit of the chorus of it.
Do they know it's Christmas time at all?
Which I think that's one of the better of these kinds of songs. It's a catchy song. It's got a little bounce to it. And even some of the people who couldn't be a part of the recording still sent in voice messages that were put on the B side of the song. So David Bowie, Paul McCartney, they were urging people to go out. Bob Geldof pushed to get this on the BBC. It aired round the clock. By the end of 1984, so in less than a month, it sold 3 million copies, which is insane for anybody. But then think of the population of the UK.
Right.
It's significantly smaller. So everyone was buying the song. It raised a ton of money, and it set off this wave that has come and gone, ebbed and flowed ever since then.
And it is the direct inspiration for "We Are the World," which they get together a month later or after Christmas in mid-January to record that song.
Right.
And actually, they put that one together
Well,
maybe even faster.
So Harry Belafonte is the one who saw "We Are the World." Harry Belafonte is the one who saw "Do They Know It's Christmas?" And he's like, "That is a great idea. We should do an American version of it."
Right.
Because we're a bigger country, it could have even more impact. So he
And I love
reaches
the
out.
fact that we should say it is Black History Month. And one of the things that Harry Belafonte saw was these are Black people in Africa who are starving. We, as Black artists in this country, should get together and do something about it.
Because Band-Aid was very white.
Yes.
It
Well,
was.
it's British.
Yeah, it's British 80s synth pop.
I think
stars
I
for
remember
the most
like one
part.
or two Black people.
Yeah.
doing that.
But so, yeah, he wants to organize this. He reaches out to a guy named Ken Cragen, and this is in the Greatest Night in Pop documentary. He's an A-list artist manager, and he goes right to the two guys he knows can write this song, Lionel Richie and Michael Jackson.
Bravo.
Yeah, that
Bravo.
was smart on his.
Yes, very smart. And especially remember in '85, Michael Jackson is everything. Lionel Richie is, if Michael Jackson is the 1A top of the heap,
Yeah.
Lionel Richie is just a notch below
Yeah,
that.
like, Lionel
as far
was
as
just
making
about to
hits.
win Album of the Year for Can't Slow Down. He was coming off of one of the biggest albums in history. So the two of them get together, and they realize part of the problem is how do you coordinate the schedules of all these stars? And that's when they were like, oh, the American Music Awards.
Which Lionel Richie happened to be hosting that year.
Yeah.
Which is amazing that he went through, and hosting an award show is not like a simple thing, like you just show up and read the teleprompter. There's a lot of rehearsing that goes into it.
And on
Lionel
top of
Richie-
that, he has to
Right.
write this song, help produce it, and get everybody together. And amazingly, it happened.
Yeah.
January 28th, 1985, after the AMAs, like it was just the who's who of mid-'80s pop music. I mean, Lionel and Michael are there, obviously. Quincy Jones is producing it, the hottest producer in the world. They got Bruce Springsteen to come and do it. They got Cyndi Lauper, Hall & Oates, Tina Turner. It's like the Stevie Wonder, the biggest artist of that moment.
Right.
Plus, you had people who were already icons at that point, like Ray Charles was there, Bob Dylan, Willie Nelson showed up. Famously, someone who did not was Prince,
Right.
who was also, coming right off of Purple Rain.
Right. And they wanted to have Prince there. He did not show up. They tried to get him after the American Music Awards. They had Sheila E. there, which they say in the documentary, she feels like they used her as bait to get Prince.
And Lionel Richie's like, yeah, that's kind of true.
Yeah.
Of course it is.
She made a phone call to him during the session, like, hey, we're all here. It's kind of cool.
And he was like, nah,
Prince
I'm good.
doesn't show up.
He
But he
did,
did
though.
record a song that's on the album, which I think a lot of people don't. I mean, you and I remember this because
Right.
we're of the age where we actually I have the LP
Yeah, I have that.
We Are the World. We Are the World obviously is the lead single, but there were a bunch of other songs that artists performed on their own, and Prince did a song that was included on
Yeah,
the album.
it's called For the Tears in Your Eyes, and he recorded a video for it for Live Aid. Also, one of the groups on that album was called Northern Lights. It was the Canadian version because this was becoming a worldwide thing at this point. Every country's like, we got to get our
Right.
A-list charity people on this. Northern Lights had Bryan Adams, Loverboy, Geddy Lee from Rush, like
Of course.
your A-list Canadian pop stars of the mid-'80s. Of course, We Are the World was a phenomenon. It debuted at number 20 on the Hot 100, which it's tied with Thriller, the single, as the highest debuting song of the entire 1980s decade.
Wow. Well, they also didn't they debut it. And this was something that I don't know if you could do today. Like they had every radio station or every pop radio station in the country play it at the same time the day it debuted on
Yeah,
Good Friday.
and they were playing it like every hour.
Yeah.
But also people were buying it. I've read Tower Records in LA said they sold 1,000 copies in 2 days, which the manager said the number one song in the country at that time would sell about 100 to 125 copies.
Right.
This thing sold 1,000.
There is something to the fact that if you give people a way that they can help, but you also give them a great product, like a song that they enjoy.
Hey, here's the
that
new Michael
everybody's
Jackson
talking
song.
about. Right. And they know that buying it is actually going to do some good and, for charity. Yeah. You get why they decided, hey, this is a great thing. And We Are the World sets off
A wave of these
Right.
things. And this is where eventually the backlash will come in because some of this was very altruistic. Some of it was, hey, I can make a lot of money and get famous doing this.
Yeah, I can get a lot of attention.
Right.
So there is definitely some of that went on. But I do think there were some good songs that came out of this.
There were right after We Are the World. It was not a famine relief song. It was Artists United Against Apartheid about the racial segregation in South Africa. Little Stephen Van Zandt from the E Street Band.
R.I.P.
Yeah, no, he's still alive.
Did
Isn't
he
he?
die?
Did he die? Oh, I thought
Honestly, I thought he died last year. Maybe not. All right. Anyway,
Little
but eventually, R.I.P.
at some point. Little Stephen Van Zandt from the E Street Band puts this together. He did not want to get Bruce Springsteen involved initially. He thought, it's too obvious.
Right.
I don't want to call in the favor. He had just done We Are the World. But Bruce came in and did it
Bruce came
anyway.
and did
This is a little bit of their song Sun City about boycotting the Sun City Resort in South Africa, urging artists not to play there and support apartheid. This is what the song sounded like. I think that is my favorite of these kinds of songs.
Such a jam. Like it's just a great song. It's got a great beat. You can move along. And I got to say, I can't remember how old I was in '85, but 16.
37?
Yeah. This song, not only was it for a great cause, but it actually, I think, educated a lot of people that this was even a thing. A lot of
First
people
time I
in this
ever heard the word
country.
apartheid. I
Right.
didn't know that.
You learned about apartheid. You learned that why. I mean, it was educational as well as something you could dance to.
And that's the thing. It's so different than so many of the songs that came before it, and so many of the ones we're going to get into, because these kind of songs tend to be these sentimental, kind of overwrought,
Sort of
saccharine
anthem.
ballads.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got to have a big thing. This was a jam. It had kind of a hip hop beat. It also was the first one of these songs to introduce rappers to charity
Right.
songs.
I know they actually. I feel like the rap parts of the song really worked. It didn't feel kind of forced
because
in
they
there.
had Run DMC was part of it, the biggest rap act in the world. Then Curtis Blow, DJ Kool Herc, Africa Bambaataa, the Fat Boys. You had legit mid '80s hip hop royalty on this song, and that's why it's a lot cooler than a lot of these other songs.
Really cool song.
Speaking of but not cool, there's somebody I want to bring up because he's oddly going to come up a couple of times in this conversation. John Denver. Speaking of cool,
All right. John Denver was not on.
he was not on We Are the
on-
World. And that was a real sore spot for him because John Denver had done years of all kinds of humanitarian work. He gave to lots of charities. He organized for things. And he was so excited to be a part of We Are the World and was told straight up, you can't be in this because you're not cool enough. They thought that he would damage the reputation of the celebrities that were there because by 1985, John Denver's about a decade past his superstardom. And he had that kind of 70s folky sunshine on my shoulders thing.
Yeah, but just put him in the chorus. I mean,
They put Dan Aykroyd in the chorus. You could put John Denver in there.
John Denver should have been in that chorus to say that he wasn't. There were plenty of people in that room that weren't all that cool.
Not all that cool. But the sad thing is that John Denver was very, very hurt about this. He said, "It broke my heart not to be included," in his autobiography.
Oh,
And then the insult to the injury is when you see the behind-the-scenes footage, there's one part where Paul Simon looks around the room at all of the biggest stars, and he goes, "If a bomb lands on this place, John Denver's back on top." I mean, kick the man while he's down.
kind of funny.
It's kind of
It's
funny.
kind of funny. Very dark, but kind of funny.
John Denver kind of winds up being an important figure in this story anyway, because after We Are the World, the Live Aid concert happens. It was
Live
directly
Aid.
organized by Bob Geldof, who had also helped put We Are the World together. He was involved in that because he was the inspiration for it. Of course, the most iconic thing from Live Aid is Queen. Queen
Yes.
performing.
Yes.
That's why that was the end of the Bohemian Rhapsody movie. Freddie Mercury, with that white tank top and little mustache. It's iconic.
But for those that don't know, Live Aid, a full day's concert in 2 different venues, in London
And Philadelphia.
and then in Philadelphia.
Phil Collins performed at both shows.
Rode the Concorde, right?
Set a Guinness World Record being the first performer to perform the same concert on 2 continents in the same day.
So many incredible performances that happened on the day of Live Aid. And the thing I remember most about it is that I did not see a single one of them. I actually probably didn't see most of those Live Aid performances until they started breaking some of them down on like MTV. And I remember this, and it haunts me to this day, that I was at an age where I felt independent enough. I was 16, so I was like, oh, I want to go hang out with my friends, or I'm going to go do this. But my mother was very much like, no, when there's a family event, you're going to you live under my roof, and you're coming with me. And someone in my family was having a cookout that day, and my mom said, you're going. We went to their house. They didn't have MTV. They didn't actually have it on TV at all. Like, I was at the cookout going, hey, is anybody going to watch Live Aid? And they're like, come on, shut up, no. And so I never saw any of it. I remember driving home, my mom was like, that was a nice day. And I was just going, yeah, it was
I
great.
wanted to watch Live Aid.
Didn't see Live Aid.
It's too bad you didn't, because you could have seen Led Zeppelin. Their reunion that was so terrible.
Was it?
It was so bad. Phil Collins played drums that they have blocked it from ever being rebroadcast and had it pulled from the DVD when it was released.
Oh, well, I'm
You
glad I
can't
didn't see that.
watch that performance. They have
Really?
buried it because they're like, it's so horrible. We don't want anyone to ever see it again. It was bad.
Thanks a lot, Mom.
Madonna showed up because Madonna was not invited to We Are the World, which is mind blowing.
Let me just talk for just a moment about the Madonna thing. Why wasn't Madonna there? And I know in the documentary they make some reference to, like, there was a battle with Cyndi Lauper. And
Well,
Ken
remember-
Cragen said that he chose to have Cyndi there instead of Madonna. And I do remember at the time that there was sort of a, which camp are you in?
It was like the Britney Christina thing in the early 2000s. Like, which one of these is going to have the staying power?
But the thing that doesn't make
Everybody
sense-
thought Cyndi Lauper.
They were willing to have Prince and Michael Jackson in the room, so why not have Madonna and Cyndi Lauper there?
Madonna was pretty new to her stardom at that point. She'd been big for about a year. But actually, the funny thing is, when they recorded it, Like a Virgin was the biggest song in the country.
Right.
And if you could have had, and Prince wouldn't do it anyway, if you could have had Michael Jackson, Madonna, and Prince on the same song, I mean, that's like a
Wow.
80s wish list right
Yes.
there. And Bruce Springsteen just for fun.
Yeah.
Madonna was not invited to it. But so she did show up at Live Aid. She did perform. One of the interesting things at Live Aid was Bob Dylan showed up. He had been at We Are the World. He had been at the concert for Bangladesh. He was an old hat at these kind of shows then. One of the things he said on stage that really pissed off Bob Geldof was, I hope that some of the money, maybe they can just take a little bit of it, maybe 1 or 2 million maybe, and use it, say, to pay the mortgages on some of the farms and the farmers here over the banks. Basically, help out the American farmers too.
Which it doesn't seem like a controversial statement.
It
to
does
make,
not.
to
Bob
say that
Geldof
there
was-
are people in need.
Bob Geldof is like, yeah, these kids in Africa are dying. This is not the same as a farmhouse being foreclosed on, which is kind of unkind of Bob Geldof.
And a little short-sighted when you figure that those farmers are the ones who actually are making food, that they're producing the food that
Right.
actually is going to feed people.
That we're
maybe
going to
not
send to
people-
Africa.
Right.
But 3 people who heard what Bob Dylan was saying who were at Live Aid were Willie Nelson, John Mellencamp, and Neil Young.
And they start Farm Aid.
They start Farm Aid later that year, which has become an annual event. And you know who performed at the very first Farm Aid concert?
I'm guessing it's going to be someone by the initials of J and D.
It is Mr. John Denver. See, they invited him to that because they were nice guys.
Right.
So, yeah, then also from out of Live Aid, David Bowie and Mick Jagger did their cover of Dancing in the Street.
I did not realize that that was supposed to be a that was
a
part of
benefit single,
a
yeah.
benefit.
It was part of that charity spinoff thing. It was a top 10 hit. I read that the recording of the song and the music video happened in 13 hours start to finish. You can tell That video is so
The
cheap.
video does not look like.
No, it's
like someone today would be someone going out with their iPhone and like in our office and
dancing in a parking lot.
right.
Which is the funny thing. Have you ever seen the video on YouTube where somebody takes the music out and fakes all just the noise of their feet scuffling and then grunting and stuff?
Yes, I have
it's
seen
the
one of
funniest
those.
thing. Also, by the end of '85, while everybody was in a charitable mood, a song that a lot of people don't know is a benefit song, Dion and Friends. It was like a mini
Yes.
We Are the World. The
Mhm.
song That's What Friends Are For. You still hear that song all the time today.
Right.
The genius thing about that song, it was a cover of a Rod Stewart song, but what was so smart is that it wasn't overtly a charity song. It wasn't, we're the children.
And
feed
because
the
it was only
children.
for people, it didn't seem like this grand benefit. And I think
Right.
that's why a lot of people didn't realize it was a benefit. It just sounded like a pop song at the time.
It was. It was a #1 hit. It was Dionne Warwick, Gladys Knight, Elton John, and Stevie Wonder. And it was not for African relief. It was for AIDS research, which was pretty groundbreaking in 1985.
Pretty bold back then,
This
yeah.
was right after Rock Hudson had died. So they got a huge hit out of it. They didn't really bill it as an all-star benefit single. It just
Right.
was. It was #1 for 4 weeks. Also, right after that, while the charity train's rolling along, a group called Hearing Aid happens, which
Please tell me that was not for deaf people.
it was not for deaf people.
Okay,
It was
all right.
also for African famine relief, but it was heavy metal. It was, like all these pop stars are going to do this and all these R&B people are going to do this. The rock
Right.
guys are like, we can do it too. So you have the lead singers of Dio, Dokken, Judas Priest, Ozzy Osbourne's part of the choir. These guys
There's a
recorded
lot of
albums.
really high notes. I'm
Lot of
guessing.
screechy high
I don't
notes.
remember that one.
It was
Hearing Aid,
not as big,
Right.
but it sold because their fans were like, well, we'll buy this too. It
Sure.
still raised several $1 million for this.
Wow.
Yeah, and so
Good
we're
on
like,
heavy metal.
we're at the high point of this going on right now with all these songs. And then with all things, the bottom falls out. 86, Hands Across America, which was an event that was meant to have people form a human chain holding hands across the United States. They got a lot of people doing it. But-
I mean, listen, I when you conceive of that, it just sounds way too big. How are we going to do this? But I guess they were feeling so empowered by what Live Aid had done and We Are the World and all these things. Like, all right, we can do this.
Well,
And
it was
this was intended to help feed people in America, right?
right. It was the American version of We Are the World, like for people in America. It was the USA for Africa organization still.
Right.
And it kind of bombed. People younger might know it. The movie Us, the Jordan Peele movie, at the end, the tethered at the end,
Yes.
they're all holding hands. It was
I remember watching that movie and I was like, this feels familiar.
Hands
It's like,
Across
yeah.
America, right? And a lot of younger people probably had no idea that was actually a real thing. And a funny anecdote. So you had to pay, I think, like $100 to hold hands because that's how they raise the funds.
Right.
Or if you were a corporation or a very wealthy person, you could buy a mile,
Right.
which was $13,000. Do you know who the first person to buy a mile was for Hands Across
I
America?
don't.
Prince.
Wow.
I don't know if that was a jab at Michael.
Hold on a second. Prince, who didn't show up for We Are the World. By the way, Prince didn't perform for Live Aid either,
No,
right?
he
I
gave
know
a video
gave
for
a
the Tears in
video,
Your Eyes, right?
but didn't perform. But he stepped up to buy a
13,000.
mile for
Because that was
13,000.
partly his complaint and why he didn't want to do We Are the World is he's like, it's such an egotistical thing. And remember there was a sign famously above the recording studio for We Are the World that said, check your ego at the door,
Right.
or leave your ego at the door. He's like, you could just give money. And he did.
Yeah.
After he died, a lot of stories about his charity came out that nobody knew about because he just didn't make a big thing out of it.
Right.
Michael, on the other hand, not to crap on Michael because he did a lot of good things. But so Hands Across America, they recorded a song for it. It was by a bunch of anonymous session singers. It was not a very good song.
It was not.
It was not. It seemed like a
It
parody
felt-
of We Are the World.
I was gonna say it's like how can we do We Are the World, but we're gonna make it different, and we're not gonna have huge celebrities singing the song. But I have to say, the music video for it probably has more celebrities
Oh yeah,
making appearances than any other charity song that we're talking about, and yet it
it
kinda
bombed. And so it was part of the USA for Africa organization. So when they were conceiving of the idea of Hands Across America, Michael Jackson, who was on the board of directors for that, obviously, was like, well, we're going to use We Are the World. And like, no, we'll do a new song. He was very against that. There was a promo for it during the Super Bowl that year, and Michael made sure that only We Are the World was played, not the Hands Across America song. And after the song came out, it bombed. It only peaked at number 65, did not raise a ton of money there. Michael resigned from the board of directors of USA for Africa because he was like, nope, I'm not. So then it makes it seem like
yeah, what like it does make it seem like his
egotistical on his part.
because he wrote We Are the World. He didn't write this other one. He didn't write the
the Hands Across
Hands
America
Across
song.
America. So it does make you feel like he was just in it for, but he wasn't getting the royalties
No,
from We
he
Are the World
wasn't.
anyway.
And-
it was all
and-
going
and
to charity.
could've
And
been
maybe
that.
it just felt like
Yeah,
the
it'll do
African
better.
charity
You
was-
can sell some more copies of We Are the World. Nobody's going to buy this Hands Across America song by random session singers. And he was right.
Yeah.
People got tired of this. There started being so many parodies of this kind of thing. Saturday Night Live had done, over the years, they've done multiple parodies of the All-Star Celebrity Charity song. In Living Color did one. South Park did it. The Simpsons did it. 30 Rock did one like not that long ago. It just became a joke.
Yeah.
And people lost interest in these songs, sort of just dropped out of favor.
And yet, even though some of the people who participated in those parodies end up actually doing one of these charity all-star
Right.
charity songs later down the road.
The very strange case of Jamie Foxx being involved in this is really, really bizarre. But it's funny, like the regrets people have about that era. In 2010, Bob Geldof, who was the godfather of all of this, he said in the Australian Daily Telegraph, "I am responsible for two of the worst songs in history." Meaning, Do They Know It's Christmas and We Are the World.
Way too hard on yourself.
They're not the worst songs in the world.
No, I still think, listen, every Christmas people listen to that song and sing along in their cars. I'm not going to sing it, but Do They Know It's Christmas? It works.
And it's been remade so many times. They did Band-Aid 2 in 1989, 5 years later for the 5th anniversary. They did it in 2004 for the 20th, 2014 for the 30th. Maybe by the end of this year, we'll get another updating of Do They Know It's Christmas for the
proof
40th.
that those two songs have lasting power and that they still work is that every anniversary they redo those songs.
Right.
We Are the World has been redone several times
now.
and not all of them bad.
No. One of the funniest ones, so by the early 90s, these songs were kind of out of fashion. Then they sort of came back for a little brief moment, partly inspired by the Gulf War in 91. You had two very different takes on the charity all-star single. Lenny Kravitz got together with Yoko Ono and Sean Ono to do a cover of John Lennon's Give Peace a Chance.
Which makes sense as a war.
Yeah, it was sort of the
charity song.
anti-war. It was like, they were called the Peace Choir. And that one didn't do as well, only number 54. But around that exact same
I'm
time.
surprised by that too, because they had big names and there's nothing, that song everybody can sing along to. I mean,
Everybody knows that
it's
song.
very redundant,
Right.
but it's, that's the point of the song.
And it's interesting. Usually you wouldn't do a cover song because you want the royalties to go toward it. But
Right.
since Yoko Ono's involved, she
Then
would have say on
signed
that.
off on that. Right. And
because she's John's
and
widow.
at the time, Lenny Kravitz was a big star. Like
Yeah.
he was coming out at that point.
Right.
So
That one didn't do as well. It got a little outshined by a song called Voices That Care.
now here's the thing about Voices That Care. Voices That Care is in that same mold of We Are the World, that sort of pop ballad.
It was probably the biggest take on that concept since We Are the World.
Right.
It was David Foster, who's a huge producer, married to Catherine McPhee now, and his buddy Peter Cetera from Chicago, who had left the band at that point. They put this is like that schmaltzy, sentimental, feel-good thing.
Right.
The song and the group were called Voices That Care. So these were both about the Gulf War. This one they had Celine Dion, who had only had one huge hit in America at that point. She was still kind of a new artist. Country stars coming in. You got Randy Travis, Garth Brooks, who was also just becoming an A-list superstar. Michael Bolton, Nelson. Remember Nelson?
Yes, I remember Nelson.
Ricky Nelson's twin sons, who had just had a #1 song called "Can't Live Without Your
Can't
Love and
Live Without-
Affection." They are the blip. Every once in a while in these, you get the blip, the person that was hot in the moment, and you get why they're invited,
Right.
but they are already forgotten by the time the song comes out. Nelson did not have a long career there. Also, the choir, like with you were saying, like they get actors and athletes involved, like Hands Across America. The choir had Kevin Costner in it, Meryl Streep, Michael Jordan, Magic Johnson, Mike Tyson, Wayne Gretzky. Just a lot of kind of random.
Yeah.
Henry Winkler and Alyssa Milano were in it.
But you know what happens in Hollywood. Someone has the idea, some agent or a manager has the idea, and then they get 4 or 5 people, and then they tell the next 10 people, well, we have this person, and everybody feels like, I don't want to be left out.
Well,
This
also,
is and they know it's going to be a huge thing because, I mean, after when the Gulf War broke out, it was a huge thing in this country. You have Whitney Houston singing at the
the national anthem.
Super
Yeah, it
Bowl,
was-
and
Lee Greenwood's "God Bless the USA" gets dusted
Right.
off again.
so nobody wants to be
And
left out.
also, you want to be a part of it, but even if you don't, I think you feel like you can't say no.
I gotta do it.
You don't want to be the
Right.
one. This song it was pretty successful. Got to number 11, was certified gold, raised some
Okay.
funds. The timing was a little off. I'm surprised it was as big a hit as it was because they released a documentary about the making of this song and the video, kind of like We Are the World. I think they were envisioning it was going to be that. But it premiered on February 28th, 1991, which is the day the Gulf War ended. So this was this whole morale for the troops for a war that just finished.
Right. Which was a good thing that the war finished.
Yes.
But yes, it's definitely scrapped the single
Yeah. So
or the success of the single.
So going through the 90s, there were a couple bit more moments with this. 1994, it wasn't for charity, but it was another all-star group. This was an all R&B one. Black Men United, shortened to just BMU.
Love that song.
Yeah, it's called
This
You
is-
Will Know. It was on the Jason's Lyrics soundtrack,
What I didn't know about that until we were doing the research that D'Angelo wrote that song.
right before his first album had even come out.
Right.
Right, and some of the people in
Great
that, Boyz II Men, who were the biggest act on earth at the time.
Mhm.
Usher, who was probably 13, 14 years old. R. Kelly. Now we cringe.
Yeah.
But in 1994,
Oh,
he was
it was everything.
That was
right.
the year of Bump and Grind. Of course, you want him on it. In '95, this is one of my favorite things. So the American Music Awards,
Mhm.
1995. It's the 10th anniversary, the night of the recording of We Are
Right.
the World. So Quincy Jones, Harry Belafonte, Lionel Richie, they come out at the end of the night and they're like, we're going to have an all-star sing-along for the 10th anniversary to celebrate
Mhm.
all the good we did. And so you had Michael Bolton doing it, Anita Baker was there,
Yep.
Aaliyah, Tim McGraw,
all,
who were
and
new
all on
stars.
stage, and they just did
All
it live.
together.
Right.
The funny thing is that night, that AMAs, Prince was given a Lifetime Achievement Award.
Right.
And this is when he was going by the symbol instead of his name. Well, he has to be on stage for that.
Right.
This time
And
he
he's
can't.
he's in a very distinct yellow
Right.
outfit, says NPG.
He got big,
Power
heavy
Generation on
sunglasses,
it, right.
and he's right in the middle of the stage because he
Singing.
was the biggest star on the stage at that
Yeah.
point. Does he finally sing it? Does he cave into 10 years of pressure? No.
Nope.
He stands there with a lollipop in his mouth, and he's just like, I'll be here for it, but I'm not singing this crappy song. I didn't want to sing it then. I ain't going to sing it now. Quincy Jones comes up, and I also love that this bugged Quincy Jones for 10 years.
Yes.
It's like, that was the one we wanted and couldn't
And
get.
he's on the stage, and Quincy says, "All right, here's the moment. I'm going to get him to sing." He hands him puts the microphone in front of him.
Prince pulls the lollipop out of his mouth and sticks it in Quincy's face like a microphone, holds it, and when Quincy Jones sticks his tongue out and goes to lick it, Prince pulls it back away from him and puts it back in his own mouth.
How are you going to do Quincy like that, Prince?
I mean, kind of dickish, but kind of funny.
How are you going to
Uh,
do Quincy like that?
So,
But there's a case of a guy who was so, I guess, at ease in his conviction that he didn't want to do this, and the reasons he didn't want to do it, that he just stood on it and he didn't cave into the pressure that we
Right.
just talked about, which is where you feel like you have to do it, otherwise you're going to be the bad guy. Prince is like, no, I'm just not going to do it.
I don't do these things.
Right.
This was also like, as this is going on, you start like that. The backlash against these starts getting like it became a joke. Like, it was so easy to make fun of celebrities trying to save the world. In Living Color did one called Career Aid, where Jim Carrey played Willie Nelson, and it was about singers. It was they were parodying all the original We Are the World people. This
Right.
was in '92, so 8 years after the fact. Also, the Simpsons had an episode where Bart pretended to be trapped in a well. He threw a walkie-talkie down a well, and he pretended to be a little boy named Timmy O'Toole. And all the people came. Krusty the Clown creates a sing-along, and they write a song called "Sending Our Love Down the Well." Sting came and did his own voice, and it was just this. It's like, look at how ridiculous this is. These
Right.
celebrities coming together for dumb things,
Right.
and it just kind of killed the whole thing off. Until, because it always comes back.
Right.
We hit the 21st century.
And We Are the
2001.
World.
Oh, before that,
Oh, 2000. Yeah,
2001
was interesting because
this one's really interesting. This was sort of a halted attempt at doing this again. So the summer of 2001, these artists who called themselves Artists United Against AIDS Worldwide, they do a cover of Marvin Gaye's "What's Going On," and they record it, and it's got like it is a who's who of turn of the century.
I
pop
watched the
stars.
video, and it is, first of all, by the way, I think maybe since We Are the World, the best produced music video and song. Like,
Right.
just
Well, and the people, the talent they got. So Destiny's Child, you got Beyonce there, Britney Spears, NSYNC, the Backstreet Boys, Jennifer Lopez, Mary J. Blige, Ja Rule, Fred Durst from Limp Bizkit, which you roll your eyes now, but
Right.
at that
At the
time,
time,
he
right.
could sell 1 million records in a week. So they released this as a
Usher's on there also.
Yeah.
Diddy, Questlove is playing like.
right. And so then it comes out. It's recorded in the summer of 2001. It's an AIDS charity record, specifically for AIDS research in Africa, because Africa was having just a bad time with AIDS, like it was just running rampant. It's recorded in the summer. It's released in October. It comes
And-
out a few weeks after September 11th.
Right.
And so suddenly, nobody wants a charity record about AIDS research in October of 2001. So, and they can't change it because the name, the artist name on the record is
right.
Artist
And they've
Against
already
AIDS
printed,
Worldwide.
right? They printed out the labels. All the artwork is done.
Back when you had to go buy physical singles, there weren't
Right.
downloads yet. So then they tried to pivot and say, well, it's also for the Red Cross to try and raise money. The song only got to number 27. It wasn't
really
the right
surprised
time.
me. Like it was a great song. Christina Aguilera's on that, and
And it's What's Going On, which is just one of the greatest songs of all time.
course.
Anyway, but yeah, people weren't in the mood for that. People did turn to music. Whitney Houston's Star Spangled Banner
Sure.
came back. Lee Greenwood's God Bless the USA came up
Mhm.
again. Enya's Only Time became a big hit because it was the mood. It was just the feeling.
Right.
People were sad. And so this kind of
they were
song,
finally in the mood for Enya.
finally in the mood for Enya. So sort of an aborted attempt at bringing this song back. But in the late 2000s, it came back in a big way. 2008, there was a TV special aired on all the major networks at once called Stand Up to Cancer. And an all-female trio, the supergroup came up. It was called Artists Stand Up to Cancer. The song was called Just Stand Up. And again, like huge stars, Beyonce, Mariah Carey, Miley Cyrus, who's going to be involved in a couple of these, Rihanna, Carrie Underwood, Mary J. Blige, Melissa Etheridge, who had just survived cancer herself. That did really well because this hit in the iTunes era. And that's partly what
Right.
helped this is that, as we said, the cover of What's Going On, they had to press up a physical CD single. By the
Right.
time they could ship it, the timing was off. This you could do immediately. So 2 million downloads of this song are sold. It raises a ton of money.
At the time, it was also very cool that you could just pull out a device.
Yeah, you
and
just
download
click
a
and
song, right.
I gave $1 to cancer research and
Right.
I get a new Beyonce, Mariah Carey, Miley Cyrus song. 2010,
It's now the anniversary of We Are the World.
25th anniversary of this song. We Are the World, 25 for Haiti.
Because was that after the earthquake had happened in Haiti?
Right.
Right. So
Devastating earthquake in Haiti. And sort of the Harry Belafonte this time is Wyclef Jean, who is
Mhm.
Haitian. And Lionel Richie is happy. Every time he can dust off We Are the World, Lionel Richie is happy to do it. So they organized the 25th anniversary as a fundraiser for Haiti. And you have, again, Miley Cyrus shows up. That's 3 in a row. Tony Bennett. We got quite an age range there. Celine Dion again. Usher again. Pink. Adam Levine.
isn't Justin Bieber on that one too?
Justin Bieber. Let's listen to the first
Very
line.
young Justin
it's
Bieber.
Justin Bieber, who would have been, I think, 15, along with Jennifer Hudson. This is the first line of that version of We Are the World.
There comes a time when we hit a certain call, when the world must come together as one.
Also there,
Wow.
Nicole Scherzinger from the
And
Pussycat
Jennifer
Dolls.
Hudson.
It's so weird. Justin Bieber's voice hadn't changed yet.
Right. It really hadn't changed.
really
It doesn't.
bizarre.
If you didn't know that was him, you're like, who's that kid?
Right. And also the funny thing, one of the singers on that and the person who introduced the video and how important it was and honoring to be a part of it was Jamie Foxx with Lionel Richie, who he had
Uh-huh.
made fun of
Right.
15 years before.
See, these things come back to bite you in the ass. They
get ya.
always do.
And then Jamie did his impression of Ray Charles because Ray Charles had been on the original We Are the
Right.
World. and
Obviously, he had passed away
died at that point. So Jamie, coming off of Ray, does his impression. Also, this time, I know they meant well because they were trying to make it a hit in 2010. And obviously, the biggest genre of music is
He's
rap.
now hip hop at that point. So,
So they work in this really bizarre rap
it
into
just
this.
felt forced in because the original song, the melody that everybody knows, was not written to have a rap in it.
No, not
was not
not at
intended.
all.
So it felt kind of. I know it was well intentioned, and also like you said, they wanted to make it a hit. So you got to get rappers on it.
And they got LL Cool J, Will.i.am, Snoop Dogg, Busta Rhymes. Kanye had an extended verse on it, which makes sense in 2010.
Sure.
The song, it was and it wasn't a success. It debuted at number 2, which is pretty impressive.
That's
Right
okay.
behind-
That sounds like a success.
Right. It got blocked by Kesha's TikTok, which, two very different kind of songs.
Totally different vibes.
But it
right.
sold almost 300,000 downloads in its first week. This was the peak of the iTunes era. And so the song debuted high, but it dropped off the chart in a little over a month. It did not have a lot of staying power. And that's sort of the problem with this is people are going to be attracted to it initially because, it's We Are the World. It's familiar. You know it. You go to it.
Right.
But it's never going to be bigger than that original moment was.
And it's not because a radio isn't what it was.
Yeah,
right?
radio's not.
Where when We Are the World, the original came out, everybody had similar listening experiences.
Right.
Now everybody can individualize their listening experience. So this is never going to be
You're-
what that was.
And nobody's going to seek that out.
Right.
Other than just the curiosity of, let's hear let's hear Justin Bieber and Tony Bennett on a song together. I don't know. 2019, we're back to climate change again. Lil Dicky decides he's going to do an all-star charity single called Earth.
Just called Earth.
Just called Earth. It was an animated video about different kind of animals and plants trying to survive climate change, and he got huge stars. Justin Bieber and Ariana Grande. Snoop Dogg was a marijuana plant, because of course he was. Ed Sheeran, Miley Cyrus, the new queen of charity singles, she shows up on this. Katy Perry, Leonardo DiCaprio as himself, because he's a climate activist. Critics destroyed this because it was meant to be sincere, and it did raise some money. It debuted in the top 20, but dropped off very quickly. You can't make fun of it and be earnest about it at the same time. Not this kind of thing, because it's, by its nature,
Then
these
people
songs
aren't going to buy into it.
Yeah.
If they know you're making fun of it, then what's right?
Or if you're watching it to make fun of it, you don't want all this, you don't want Leonardo DiCaprio telling you to save the Earth.
Right.
So that kind of bombed and became a joke. Then in 2020, during COVID, two things. One, Lionel Richie wanted to do 35th anniversary
35th
version
anniversary.
of We Are the World for COVID relief. Mercifully, that did not happen, because I don't know what that would have been like. But then Gal Gadot, the actress, Wonder Woman, decided to do her all-star charity thing to lift spirits during quarantine.
It wasn't even really going to raise money.
No,
This was just because it was everyone's at home, so it was more of a sort of social media.
It was trying to go viral. She
Right.
covered Imagine, which we learned with Give Peace a Chance. Don't touch the John Lennon songs.
You think
I
that's
know
what
it's
it is?
tempting, but that's not, because those songs are never going to be better than his original. You got to
Right.
do a new song. Everybody hated this song. All the celebrities involved were just met with such contempt and mockery.
Well, it just felt because everybody was everyone was impacted by that particular crisis that we were in. And it wasn't like just thinking about people in another country who were starving, or even people in this country who were starving. This was something, because not everybody experiences that. And we were all going through it. And the last thing anybody wanted was a bunch of celebrities getting together.
Really good-looking, wealthy people telling you, it'll be okay.
Right.
The funniest thing, Chris O'Dowd, the Irish actor, has been in a ton of stuff. He did an interview later that year, and he had been part of it, and he said he regretted it and called it creative diarrhea, which is kind of
Pretty
where we are
accurate.
on charity singles right now.
Yeah.
But
I will say, when I watched the We Are the Greatest Night in Pop documentary, it made me, the first thing I thought was, they couldn't do this today. They absolutely could not do this today. They
Couldn't
just
they?
couldn't. And then I was talking to a friend, and I said, look, all right, you can put these people on the list. And I was like, obviously you have Beyonce, Adele, Taylor Swift, Rihanna. And then I was like, and then that's it. And then my friend goes, yeah, but what about Justin Timberlake? And I was like, okay. And then I go, well, what about
no.
Justin Bieber?
yeah,
All right.
it doesn't have to be.
Bieber.
Yeah, you could even still, from the original, you still get Stevie Wonder on it.
Well,
He could do it. He was at the
interesting
Grammys.
thing was, so my friend and I ended up putting together this list, and now I go, oh wait, I think we have more people than the original We Are the World. And what's interesting is that a lot of the people are people who were on the version that
The
they
2010
did.
version.
Yeah, the 2010
Right.
version. So I ended up with the ones I mentioned: Lady Gaga, Usher. I feel like Drake would be kind of the prince. Like maybe he
Drake
might
is
hold out.
You'd want Taylor and Drake would not do it.
Right. Dave Grohl is always down
Gotta
for
have him.
charity. Got to have some rock. Bruno Mars, Chris Stapleton, get some country
Sure.
in there. Jennifer Lopez, maybe. The Weeknd. Not sure if he would do it either.
Probably
Ed
not.
Sheeran, Morgan Wallen. Some people might
Do you
have a
invite
problem
him
with
because he's got such a fan base and such streaming
that.
power.
He does, and that's
but he's
why
going
you
to
have
put off a lot
invite
of
him.
people too.
Maybe. Katy Perry. Then I call it the Voice group. You can put in Blake Shelton, John Legend, Kelly Clarkson.
All the judges from The Voice.
Yes, Luke Bryan from American
Of
Idol,
course.
Gwen Stefani from The Voice, and then some legends who are on the original. You can still do Diana Ross, Lionel Richie, Stevie Wonder,
Bruce Springsteen.
Billy Joel.
Yeah.
Um,
And even though it didn't work in 2010, you got to put the rap on it.
yes, but
gotta have
you got to
Future,
change this
Travis
a
Scott.
part of the song though. You
Yeah.
can't have it be to the same melody. There's got to be a bridge.
Yeah, you got to have something. And then you get Cardi B, Megan Thee Stallion. You can't have her and
Well,
Nicki
you can't have
Minaj.
them
You can't
twerking
have
on
all-
it.
Yeah.
Well, you can't have them twerking on it, Eric. That's not gonna
We
work.
wanted, this is for the children, Charles. This is for the children.
It's
Twerk
different
for the kids.
twerking. The twerking for kids.
How are we going to sell this?
All right. Maybe now you've convinced me.
WAP, wet ass philanthropy. What?
That is all kinds of
But
wrong.
next
But
year is the 40th anniversary.
something's going to happen. Someone is going to do it. And
There are a lot of bad things happening in the world right now. There's a lot of things you could raise money for.
I hope that somebody does it. I hope they do it justice because the original, not just a great moment for my childhood, but a great moment for pop.
The greatest night in pop.
The greatest night in pop. So I think that's going to do it for us on our maiden voyage of Get to the Hook. And we look forward to talking about great music moments with you guys. Great conversations we have here, and we want to share them with you. So
Right. Thanks for
hopefully we'll be back. Thanks for listening.